To quote the great Ron Swanson, things are about to get K-Razzy. We have two phenomenal guests with us here today, Tyler Norton with Tight Lines HVAC and Nathan Sutherland with Sponsored. But first, let's catch up on what's going on here in Utah this week. The Larry H. Miller Sports and Entertainment Group is opening 3 of their Megaplex locations in Salt Lake County for voting in the November election. The Utah Jazz have also agreed to open the Vivint Smart Home Arena for voting. The idea is to provide as many in-person voting options as possible to allow for more social distancing and ease minds about voting in person. Gail Miller, owner and chair of the Larry H. Miller Group of Companies, said in a statement that our sports and entertainment venues are familiar community gathering places, and we are pleased to join with the Salt Lake County Election Division to provide 4 facilities as safe, convenient, and accessible voting locations on Election Day. Voting this year is obviously a complicated issue, and I think most of the nation is expecting absolute chaos and havoc regardless of what the results appear to be. Next, the public comment period for the Northern Corridor project in Washington County has just ended, but there will continue to be ways for input to be submitted. For those unfamiliar with the Northern Corridor project, it is designed to ease traffic congestion between the cities of St. George and Washington by adding a freeway on the north end of each of the towns. The primary point of contention with the proposed alternative is that it cuts directly through the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve, which is home to the Mojave Desert tortoise. But the proposal does include a substantial addition of nearly 6,900 acres to the reserve. Weber State University has begun offering low-cost training and course options for those who have lost their jobs due to the shutdowns related to COVID-19. Weber State is offering courses in computer science, health, geospatial technology, that sounds interesting, and business. Most of the funding for these courses comes from the CARES Act, which is allowing the out-of-pocket costs for these courses to stay very low. There are online options, hybrid options, and in-person options. Alrighty, we will now bring on our esteemed guests. Our first guest today is Tyler Norton, owner at Tight Lines HVAC. Tyler, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
All right, so Tight Lines HVAC, where does that name come from?
So when we first started the company, we both had day jobs. Liked to fly fish a whole bunch, so we started doing these jobs, side jobs, to make money to go fly fishing, buy the newest fly fishing equipment, whatever we could. So as it got bigger and we had more clientele, we turned it into a full-fledged company and named it after what we like to do best, which is fly fish. So
Okay, so Tight Lines comes from fly fishing.
that's right.
All right, I love that. That's great. So you're here to talk to us today a little bit about the cold front we just experienced and what you might need to do or what you might hear or see or experience from your furnace at the beginning of the fall season. Is that right?
Yeah, there's lots of new little things that can happen as soon as you turn your furnace on for the first time, in 6-8 months,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff you could be looking at. Just this morning I had 3 phone calls on, hey, my furnace, I turned it on, turns off, turns on, turns off, and then won't come back on. Number one problem with that is usually a thing called a flame sensor. It's a little rod inside your furnace that reads the flame. The reason it does that is if it reads the flame, it'll continue on the process of heating your house. If it doesn't, you don't want raw gas leaking into your house, so it immediately shuts that off as a safety.
Okay.
Keeps you protected. That's why we also talk about new furnaces, new safeties, new equipment has these protocols in it to keep you safe. So flame sensors a big thing, are super easy to clean, but a big problem when you first fire it up because all that dust that builds up on it over the summer. So that can be a big one. Another one can be, hey, it turns on, acts like it's going to run and never fires. A lot of times there's a little thing inside of it called an igniter. If you don't have a pilot, which the pilot's like back in your grandma and grandpa days, you don't really have pilots very much anymore. They're still around, but they're not near as common. So you have a hot surface igniter, you have a spark igniter. Hot surface igniter is a chunk of metal or chunk of carbide that lights up really, really hot to a ground, starts the fire. Those are pretty common to fail too after the last couple heat or cooling seasons. If they have a slight crack in them, they won't ground out anymore. So that's usually number 2. The other thing is your filter just being plugged. That can be a pretty
Gotcha.
common problem as well.
We ran into the filter being plugged a lot over the summer just because with our air conditioning it would start to freeze over the piping. But okay, so back to the flame sensor issue, the first one you mentioned there, you mentioned that the sensor itself might actually be fine, it's just covered in dust.
Correct.
Is that more common than the sensor itself just needing to be replaced?
So very, very rarely do you actually replace the sensor. It's a piece of metal that reads a resistance, and it's hard to fake that resistance. So as it builds up, it burns onto it. So it's not necessarily the dust on the sensor, it's as it burns onto it, then you get a less resistance factor into it. So the control board reads it as that's not what I want. So you have to take it out, and there's a special sequence in cleaning it. You can't, if you touch it with your fingers, the oils on it can burn onto it and damage it. If you use something too abrasive and end up scratching it too much, that can also cause issues with it. So we have a special fine bristle tool that can clean it, and I've also been trained from old technicians to clean it with a $1 bill. It's abrasive enough to clean the dirt off, but not too abrasive to dig into it, and it won't leave any type of debris behind on it. I've had people that go in with an SOS pad and try to clean it, and a lot of that green stuff gets left on it, burns onto it. Same thing with sandcloth, not a good idea. It also can, too gritty. If you had like 500 grit, you'd probably be fine. Still wool, lighter still wool will be fine.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, that's usually what we try to do is we like the little tool we have. It works great, not too abrasive, polishes up nice, and keeps you. Can
you kind of tell how successful an HVAC guy is by what $1 bill he uses? If it's a $1 bill or a $10 bill, 20.
Could do, yeah, a $100 bill. You'd be probably doing all right. But I don't know if it'd be hiring a guy that cleans your flame sensor with a $100 bill. You might have a little too much going on.
Okay, so cleaning off the flame sensor, that's a common thing, and the symptom of that is if it shuts on, shuts it back off?
Yep, very short cycles, like it's under a 30-second period, usually 5-10 seconds it'll run and off, and it'll do that 3 times, and usually go out into a lockout. That's pretty common with today's furnaces.
Okay, and then the second issue that you mentioned is if they run but there's no heat?
Yeah, like if it you hear everything going, clicks going on, but then it never finishes, never fully gets the flame to it. You can hear the gas valve go off, kind of hear that inducer motor running, but it never actually heats your house. That's usually an igniter at that point.
And that sounds like it could be a lot more dangerous, where the gas is just shooting out into the house.
Again, yeah, but that's the flame sensor not reading the flame, so it will shut it off.
Oh, okay.
So the you're talking back in the 60s and stuff, we did have a pilot, there was a chance that it would have a low leak on it that would go by. A lot of those have been replaced since then. But
sure.
Most furnaces in people's homes right now will have those safeties built into them.
Okay, gotcha. And you mentioned the igniters. Now I'm picturing in my mind a grill igniter.
Yeah.
Is it basically the same thing?
That's a spark igniter. Yeah.
Okay.
So that style where it'll pulse and it'll try to spark. That is one style. The hot surface igniters are. Kind of looks like if you were to stick a piece of metal in a flame for a little while and then you pull it out and it glows red. That's what a hot surface igniter is, and that's what it is. It's just sending a ground to it.
Okay.
So you have 120 volts heating up this rod of metal, makes it glow red, starts. Or carbide or whatever they use for it. Usually it's a carbide. One of the brand, there's 2 different styles. There's the carbide and then a metal. The carbide's it's usually called a Norton style. And it has little swivels that go up and down inside of it. And then there's the rod style, so you can kind of tell when you look into your furnace what style they are.
All right, and that second style, that sounds more long-lasting. That sounds like it would be more reliable.
Yep, yeah, usually the rod style are, because there's not a lot that can fill on them. The carbides take less voltage to heat up, so that's why a lot of times they use them. Less voltage, less energy. People love energy efficiency.
Yeah.
But they do tend to fail more because they're super brittle too. When you go to touch them, take the screw out, a lot of times if they've been in there for a while, they'll just disintegrate.
Oh wow, okay.
So they are not as durable as the rod style, but most companies use a hot surface igniter nowadays for energy purposes as well.
All right. And then the third issue you mentioned was, I think, Was that with filters?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk filters for a second.
Sweet.
Because this is a big question for a lot of people, and I know that many times I have forgotten to change my filters for months, and I know that can be bad. So let's talk a little bit with a clogged filter. If they have AC running, do they run into that issue as much when it comes fall? Or
So it's easier to heat a home than it is to cool a home.
Okay.
You do, depending, and every system's different. But yeah, plug filters will definitely cause more issues that you will notice on your cooling system than on your heating system. And that's because you need a lot more airflow to satisfy cooling, not as much airflow to satisfy heating. So you start restricting that down. You get the freeze up on your coil that everyone
Sure.
hates. And you get less air through your home as well, trying to distribute that cooling as you start to plug that filter up. So yeah, it's definitely seen a lot more in the summertime than it is in the wintertime, but there's still a few problems you can see when your filter starts to fail.
Well, this has been really helpful so far. A lot of great information just about furnaces in general. But let's talk. I've seen just in the last few years. I mean, I'm sure they've been around longer, but I've been exposed to them in the last few years. These huge box filters that are like 4 inches thick, and they're they go all the way around, of course. But why would someone choose to recut their ducts or however they need to do that to get that to fit? Why would somebody do that?
So that's actually my favorite way to go. When we retrofit or change out furnaces, if we have the option to do a 4-inch, we usually do. The theory behind a 4-inch, you have a lot more surface area. So 1-inch filter, you got a little pleat that's 1 inch. That's going to build up a lot faster than a pleat that's 4 inches, right? So you have a lot more air that can travel through a 4-inch filter than a 1-inch filter. You're also looking at almost only on a yearly basis do you have to replace that filter being a 4-inch.
Okay.
They are more expensive, but you get better air filtration, you get better airflow. I mean, the biggest downfall to them is just the price. But there's a lot of different companies out there that will try to cheat you into you need to buy our filter because it's better. There's really no reason to do that. You buy the basic filter you can that's going to sustain the static pressure in your system. You don't want to buy a filter that's going to make it collapse. If you get a really cheap one and it starts building up, you don't want it sucking into your ductwork, right? So basic 4-inch filters, phenomenal idea. It's definitely a great way to go, especially if you have asthma. If you have any type of allergies, it's able to keep and hold those a lot better than a 1-inch filter. Because as that 1-inch filter starts to build up too, there's really no structure behind it. It's a lot easier for it to start bending and folding, and then you get little pockets around it that the air is going to be able to penetrate through.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So just the rigidness of a 4-inch filter is a major selling point.
So does it make sense if the existing system you have is designed for the 1-inch style filters to cut and make it work for a 4-inch? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so a lot of the times we will do that because we have, say when it was designed, the return wasn't designed properly and you have less airflow than what you should have. It helps that thing breathe better, so we have more air coming across it than being restricted in the filter line. So a lot of times to help with the airflow, we will add a 4-inch filter. A lot of times people think, well, I can't get a hold of a 4-inch filter, and they'll put 4 1-inch filters in. That is a horrible idea because each one of those adds static. It's because it's not designed to have them stacked in a row. Same thing with the 2-inch filter. A lot of times we'll do a 2-inch filter if we can't get a 4-inch because it's still better than a 1.
Sure.
But if people can't find a 2-inch filter and they put 2 1-inch filters in, very bad idea. It screws up the static even more. Those are only designed to be singled. They're not made to be in a row. So definitely, if you can't find it, if you have a 2-inch or 4-inch and you can't find one, just stick to a standard 1-inch. Put it in there till you can find it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, that's all the time we have, unfortunately, because this is a great topic for conversation. But I think that was very valuable to everybody watching, and clearly you know your stuff. You know what you're talking about, and I think that you'd be a great asset in anybody's home who needs repairs. So for people who want to get in touch with you about utilizing your services or contacting you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So I've always got my phone. Best way to get hold of me is I have 2 different phone numbers through 801-682-9160, and then our office number is 385-289-9052. We're also on Google, we're on Facebook, and we have a webpage, tightlineshvac.com. So
awesome.
Find us on there and we'll get a hold of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on.
Appreciate it, man.
Yes, thank you. All right. before we bring on our next guest, we're going to have a quick shout out to my company, Robin Hood Studios. Our company specializes in making video production, professional, high-end video production accessible to smaller businesses. And part of that is making sure that we can meet our clients' budget wherever they are. So typical video production companies, if you want the full-fledged video production, you're not going to see pricing less than $10,000. And our specialty is projects that are $10,000 and below. In fact, our most affordable package is only $400. We cover everything from $400 to $10,000 budgets, and we focus on making videos that work effectively. That is our key metric, is return on investment. We will not make a video for a client for cheaper than we can. If we cannot do it properly, if we cannot do it well, we will not do it at all. And that's part of our guarantee here at Robin Hood Studios. If you feel that an advertising campaign or a promotional video would be valuable in your marketing structure, in your marketing campaign, and your plans, reach out to us. You can go straight to our website at rhsvideos.com, or you can call our office number, which I have forgotten at the moment, but it is right there at the top of the website, rhsvideos.com. Alrighty, our next guest is Nathan Sutherland, who is the next Zuckerberg, if we're being honest. He has started a social media platform that is designed to connect businesses and consumers in an intuitive and unique way. It is called Sponsored. Nathan, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about Sponsored and my passion. So.
All right, so give me a quick rundown. Give me the elevator version of Sponsored.
Yeah, so Sponsored is not just another social media company. We're a social commerce company. What that means is that you take pictures of what you love, you tag those small businesses, the products that you really enjoy, and then if your pictures lead to a sale, you can get paid for helping that business grow.
Okay, so the general idea is that you're already working with products, you're already doing things, you're probably already taking pictures, so why not channel that into something that is more effective for the small business that you probably want to support anyway, and you can get compensated for it. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was I was in Budapest, we were there for a wedding, and I was just people watching. We're in this beautiful, it's called the Fisherman's Bastion. It's a stunning building, and I saw thousands of people taking pictures. And I just started thinking about it, and I thought, where are each of those pictures going to go? And in every picture, people would adjust their jacket or their purse or their glasses. One person held up a flask. I mean, I watched for about 15 minutes or so. And I started realizing that those are unique advertisements that a business cannot pay to replicate. You could have all the money in the world, but word of mouth marketing is impossible to actually replicate. We try it with influencers, and that has its drawbacks.
Sure.
It works sometimes, but for small businesses especially, influencers are a big risk. Give free products or significant discounts, especially when they're already on that margin of trying to grow their business.
So how does the platform work essentially?
Yeah, so it's a unique platform. Download it in the App Store. But basically what you do is we have these things called communities. And communities are passionate groups. I'll use fly fishing as an example because I love it. And we have a company on our platform. They're based in Ogden called Wasatch Shankar Rods. And I actually bought their rod. I love it. So what you do is you go out and you do your hobby like you do every Saturday or after work or whatnot. And you take pictures just like you would. But now you post them and you have to put it into the community. Fly fishing, for example. Optionally, you can tag the product. So you could say, I want to tag this company and this rod. And when you do that, anyone who follows the community and wants to go check out what's happening in the world of fly fishing, or who's your friend and follows you, can see that picture. And when they see it, a little shopping bag appears because you tagged the product. And if you're scrolling through and you say, you know what, I've been looking for a new rod. I want this one. I trust, say, Nathan for whatever reason. Maybe I'm always out fly fishing. They can buy that. They hold a little shopping bag for 3 seconds, and it asks them to confirm their address and their credit card, and it's purchased. You don't ever have to leave the platform. You don't have to go to another page. And you see it, you want it, you buy it. And then the original poster, that's where their compensation comes in. They earn a little bit of money for for helping advertise and successfully grow that small business. The other cool part we have is when you've earned that money, we've brought in nonprofits. Tree Utah is one that's signed up right now, but the idea is, say you were out hiking, you had a nice hiking staff that you bought from a small business, took a picture, and that picture drove sales. But on your hike, you saw that the trail was maintained or the forest was maintained by Tree Utah. We want to encourage people to grow their passion. You're passionate about what you love, the hobby, the products that make your hobby better, and the organizations, which we like to say make it possible. So as easy it is to see it, you want it, you buy it. We've made it, you see it, you think it's cool or awesome, and you donate to these organizations. So that's
awesome.
how it works on Sponsored.
Okay, so a business would, they would sign up on Sponsored. I would imagine they'd have to add their products, register their products that can be tagged, and then facilitate whatever ordering system that they have, and they'd have to, get that coordinated with what they've got on their, in their warehouse or however that works. But then at that point, they can be tagged, their products can be tagged, and they just get it out there.
Exactly, yeah, and really how you mentioned their processes that they have, that's kind of also where small businesses really come in. Is we don't have a shipping agreement yet, and in the future we might try to team up with FedEx or UPS or something. But for now, it's really the methods that those small businesses have, that's what they're using to ship. They receive a purchase order, you said, after they've added their products, and when a purchase happens, they receive the order. So really what they get, these businesses, they get their marketplace. Think Etsy, except this social aspect of Etsy. So they have their marketplace, which is kind of their website as well. They're advertising. So people who are going to take pictures and who have actually bought their products now are advertising for them. And then just the ability to take what they learn on Sponsored, and maybe they do want to run a Google campaign or something. They can take that and go there. So
okay, so for a business, really, it's fairly straightforward. I mean, once you go in and set it up. Now, can businesses also post their own content?
No, not right now.
Not right now. Okay.
Nonprofits can. We have limited that. It might be something we change in the future. But the idea is a business, I've been talking with a bunch of small business owners, and they're fed up with, man, I have to manage my Instagram every single day. I have to be on Facebook every day. I want to develop my products that I'm passionate about. Why do I have to do this? And so we've kind of made it so your customers are doing that work for you. Obviously, the customers then benefit if their work pays off, but no, we don't have that at the moment.
Okay, and that is an interesting thing, and I think that makes sense with the way you've built out the site, where it's all consumer content. They're the ones making the content, they're controlling it, and on the business side, once you set it up, it kind of just runs itself. It just does its own thing.
Exactly. We have a couple of competitors, Woolly, they're actually based in Utah, down in Provo. Another one, Mavly, in Chicago, and then a few other small startups in this realm of social commerce. We're the only true, in the sense of users or generate the content a business can't, we're the only true platform in that sense. The others have kind of incorporated this idea of the business-generated content merging with the consumer-generated content, but we've decided to just go consumer-generated content. So.
Interesting. So on the consumer side, so the business side I think makes a lot of sense. It's pretty easy to understand, and I like the idea that it doesn't matter how many followers or likes somebody has. What matters is how many people actually buy the product. A company is not paying these micro influencers. Everybody's an influencer idea. They're not paying everybody money to post content. What they're paying for is when a purchase actually happens.
Exactly.
And so it really boils it down to when the rubber actually meets the road, what's happening, and that's what's being compensated. On the consumer side, if you are posting content, and now admittedly, I'm not a heavy social media user, so this may be a world that I'm just not familiar with, but do you risk the platform becoming a little too focused on those compensations, where people are deliberately creating content purely to tag it with products, and then that's not as well received by other people on the platform that follow them?
That's a huge risk, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because really, and the way we've kind of mitigated that is twofold. You're required to put your picture into a community. And that's because we want those photos and what you're doing to be seen by people who actually want to see it, right?
Sure.
But that's the only requirement. You're not required to tag a product.
Okay.
And you're not required to tag and then the nonprofits come in. That's that aspect of passion. We wanted to make it more so that it's sharing passion, enjoying passion, with that opportunity to earn. Now, as our user base grows, we might need to pivot a little bit and kind of
Sure.
work and figure that out. But the steps we've taken to mitigate that is to make it so it's not just about earning money, it's about passion. But you can earn money if you want.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. I mean, right now, it's all based on user feedback. It's based on data that you get, and that's how the process is going to be informed. It makes sense to keep it fairly wide open just to see what happens. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen yet.
Yeah.
You don't want to address a problem that's never going to come up. So that makes a lot of sense. And that made me forget my question. Oh well. So you said Sponsored is live right now. It's on the App Store.
Yeah, it's on the App Store, Google Play Store. For users, it's all the mobile app. Businesses is all done, and nonprofits are done online. For businesses, we're product-based small businesses who really make these passionate products. Think Etsy.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so is there a browser-based version for desktop users or anything like that?
Not yet. So we find, Instagram didn't really come out with their browser
Right.
version until about 5 years after they were developed.
Again, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's when it comes to social aspects and apps,
Sure.
it at some point we need a cost-based analysis. It might not be worth it right now.
So as far as a business adding products and getting all that stuff set up, that's all on the phone as well, through the phone app?
Oh no, that's online. So that's
okay.
that's their online portal. The businesses add that,
Gotcha.
and they do everything online.
Okay.
Primarily because they're not interacting. And so we are doing a special, I guess. So the first 55 businesses, we're at about 30 right now, who join the platform. They'll be free for life, except they pay the commission on the sales, which is
Sure.
9.6. Once we get past that, it'll be $20 a month for a business to maintain an account. Like I said, for that account, they get their marketplace platform and their access to the data.
So this will probably have to be my last question, unfortunately, but how would they, if they're not able to post content on the platform, what then is the best options for a business who wants to incorporate Sponsored into their larger marketing strategy?
Yeah, so they can see that content. So what we do is when on the business account, they can see everything, every user that's tagged them and what community they've put it in. So when you ask how they can use it in their larger marketing strategy, the idea is, say a business made a hat for gardening, but they found that for some reason, rock climbers just loved that hat. They never thought that rock climbers would love it, but it's taken off in the rock climbing community because of this user-generated content.
Yeah.
They can see that in their Sponsored page, and then they could go, oh, wow, I'm going to pivot or open up to rock climbers, and maybe add that to their marketing on other social sites or their website.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something we're excited about.
So for people who want to check out Sponsored, look at it, I guess the best thing to do is just hop on the Google Play Store or the App Store, right?
Yeah, you can go to sponsored.com. That will take you right to the Google Play, the App Store
cool.
link. I mean, you could also search it. If you just want to talk with me, 801-309-4961. I always have my phone on me, and right now we're growing, and the best way to grow is to take feedback. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you again. Alrighty, and folks, that is it for this week's episode of Venture Utah. We will catch you next week at the same time, Friday, 10 a.m.